Do you feel like you're getting way too attached way too quickly when you're dating? Today I'm talking about how I learned to date without getting attached too quickly. When I was dating years ago after my divorce, I was not in a good place. I was grieving my exes, and so I was feeling a lot of sadness and longing for them. I wasn't feeling good enough, which is why I left those relationships. My ex was emotionally unavailable, and that contributed to my self-worth being very low. And I was starving for affection, which looked like as soon as I found someone I liked, I latched onto them. I was like someone dying of thirst in the desert who was just given a drink of water. I was so starved for affection and love that when I got just a crumb of it, I latched on very quickly. And you may not be surprised to learn that attaching very quickly did not work out for me. The reason being, I attached myself to people who were giving me crumbs. Crumbs of affection and crumbs of love. I didn't give myself enough time to really get to know them and see what they were bringing to the relationship before I was all in. So after my divorce and the abusive relationship that I had gotten into, I realized I needed to shake this up. I knew I had to learn how to slow down and take some time to get to know someone before I went all in. So that's what I'm going to tell you about today. How I learned to take that time and give myself that energetic distance before I decided this was the right person for me. Before I get into this, I want to start with the disclaimer that I am not here to demonize attachment. I see a lot of that out there, and it's not where we need to go if we want to shift this. I especially see this a lot in the spiritual community, where people are talking about how if we want to be awake and enlightened, then we need to detach. This is misleading, because if we want true unattachment, we actually have to go through our attachment, which means processing all the emotion that connects us to others. And you do that through connecting and being in relationships. But that's a topic for a whole other video. If you're interested in hearing me talk about attachment and spirituality, you can leave a comment and I'll see if I can make that video for you. So back to the topic. Our brains are wired for attachment, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. Attachment is a natural process, and in order to heal our attachment wounds, we have to embrace it. We have to embrace our attachments and accept them, also known as loving ourselves. But what we do want to do is make sure that we are slowing this dating process down and taking our time to get to know someone so that we're not missing any red flags or things that would not work out. So here's the 3 most important things I did to stop attaching so quickly. Number 1, I filled my connection bucket up. There was a time when I was going through this healing process and dating, and I was living alone, and I was so lonely. I was really feeling that lack of connection and that lack of affection. And I realized that when I was dating from that place, it was so easy for me to latch onto the first person that came along. So I actually moved in with my parents for a while. It was good for me financially coming out of a divorce, but it was also good for me and my healing. Because instead of feeling desperate for connection, I had my parents who I could connect to. This helped me feel like I had a baseline of connection, and I could date from that place versus that desperate place before. I also reconnected with my friends, and I made some new ones. I spent a lot of time on online forums because I was working from home at the time and didn't have coworkers to connect to. And I met a ton of new people. And on one of those internet forums, I met my current partner. So I filled my connection bucket up so that when I started dating, I could hold back a little and slow down because that bucket was filled, so to speak. The second thing I did to not attach so quickly was to work on my self-love. One of the reasons why I was attaching so quickly was because my self-love was not great. Deep down, I didn't think I was worthy of being truly loved. So I settled for crumbs of love, and I had this I'll take what I can get mentality. But this was not conscious. I wasn't aware that this was going on until I dug deep into my subconscious and realized the belief that I wasn't good enough had been sitting there. The subconscious is the part of us that we're not aware of on a day-to-day basis. Take driving, for example. When you're first learning how to drive, it takes all of your focus. You're figuring out how to turn left, how to signal, how to get on the highway. You can't think about anything else. After a few months, once you've already learned how to drive, those movements and conscious thoughts you had while learning how to drive go into the subconscious. That's the part of the brain you don't have to think about. Things in there work automatically. And just like with driving, anything that we do for a long time goes into the subconscious. So for me, I had been thinking and believing that I wasn't good enough for a long time. So long that I had forgot I had thought that. I had forgot I decided that I wasn't good enough. That belief was from painful things that happened to me years ago, and it was sitting around in my subconscious mind like a program running in the background, causing me to settle for crumbs in my relationships. When I used subconscious healing tools to help me rewire that belief that I wasn't good enough and release the emotional energies that were propping that belief up, I truly started to love myself and feel worthy of receiving the love that I had been so freely giving others. If you're thinking, Lindsay, what are subconscious healing tools? What did you use? These are the same tools I use to help my clients shift their attraction patterns and find real love. This is part of my Living Free Finding Love program. You can click on the program link in the description here to find out all about the specific tools I use. So when I started dating, after doing all that subconscious work to boost my self-love, I stopped settling for those crumbs. Since I felt so much better about myself, I was then able to slow down. And instead of diving in right away with someone and getting attached and hoping that they would choose me back, I was dating from the place of, is this person what I'm looking for? Because at that point, I felt like I truly deserved to be treated well and to have the kind of relationship I wanted. The third thing I did to stop attaching too quickly was I used the wait and see approach. Now that I was loving myself and feeling confident because of the subconscious work I did, I was able to slow down my dating process, pull back energetically, and take my time getting to know who I was dating before I went all in. Here's the thing. If you were my client and you had a history of being more closed off or more avoidant in love, then this wouldn't be the strategy for you. I'd actually advise you to lean in and be more vulnerable in the beginning. But if you're like I was and you're way too vulnerable way too quickly, then you have a different job here. Your job, like it was for me, is to come back into balance. And that looks like taking your time to get to know someone before taking it to the next level. I had known my partner as a friend for a while before we started talking romantically. And when we did start talking romantically, I asked him a ton of questions, what he was looking for and what his values were before I decided I wanted to start dating. And we dated for a year before we moved in together. So I really slowed the process down to make sure I wasn't seeing any red flags, to make sure there were no deal breakers, all of the stuff I was missing when I was diving in right away in the past. Here's something I also did with my partner as a part of this process. I made sure that once we had started talking romantically, because we had met online, that we got on the phone with each other, then did video calls, and then met in person as soon as possible. Because I knew from past experiences that if I didn't do that, I would build this person up in my head. And then when we met in person, it might not be what I imagined. So I took it to IRL ASAP. IRL means in real life. This is what worked for me to stop attaching too quickly, and I hope it works for you too. If you want to learn how to know if someone really likes you when you're dating, check out this video here. And if you'd like daily motivation and inspiration for healing from a breakup and finding real love, you can follow me at The Real Love Alchemist on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok.